Welcome to the Midwest Blitz. It's college football comfort food for the Midwest soul. Now, here are your hosts, Coach Drew and Big Nick.
Welcome to another edition of the Midwest Blitz. It's Coach Drew and Big Nick, and it's a Week 12 recap. Yup.
So before we get into the meat and potatoes of the show, which is the Big Ten breakdown, we're going to lead off with Notre Dame versus Pittsburgh in our recap. But before we get there, Coach Drew, we're going to look at the college football playoff rankings and the teams that were ranked and who won and who lost. We're going to kind of speculate and look at who's going to drop, who's going to raise up. There's not a lot there, because number one, Ohio State beat UCLA as we expected. We will chirp on the Buckeyes here later in the program. Indiana beat Wisconsin. Texas A&M beat South Carolina. Hell of a comeback, Coach Drew, by the way. That was wild. South Carolina's got as much speed on offense as any team in the country, but just hasn't been able to utilize it for whatever reason. But boy, we saw it in that game. And then Texas A&M charges back behind Marcel Reed at quarterback. Marcel Reed is so legit at quarterback. I think he could be a really good dude in the NFL. Not to get off track there, but Bama loses at home to Oklahoma. John Mateer is back, by the way. I've been saying, I don't want to bring you in on this, Drew. I said Mateer has not been the same player since he had the hand surgery. Dude, he looked like it the other day. He was running and slinging it like he was before he got hurt. So Bama's going to drop down. Georgia beat Texas at 5. Texas Tech, number 6, hammered UCF as we expected. Ole Miss squeaked one out against Florida. Lane Kiffin, you can't play the Citadel every week, and they didn't this week. They played Florida and managed to win. I think Florida had a chance to win that game on a 2-minute drill at the end, but didn't pull it out. Oregon decimates Minnesota. PJ Fleck and the Gophers, who I have represented since the beginning of the season, having a tough go of it. We'll get into that one later because that's a Big Ten matchup. Notre Dame smashes Pittsburgh pretty much. Pittsburgh's a solid team. That's a quality win on the road for Notre Dame. Then below that, at number 10, who was number 10? Oh, they got erased from the board because they lost. So we're going to go to Oklahoma at 11, who moved up because they beat Bama. And then BYU beat TCU. I'm not sure that raises them up after a loss last week. So, Coach Drew, we want to look at, do we think Bama could possibly fall below Notre Dame? Bama was 4 last week, lost at home to Oklahoma. And Notre Dame won. So Notre Dame, to me, is kind of secure in their spot, but Oklahoma was below them, won the road game against Bama. I feel like Oklahoma is going to go above Notre Dame after that, but this is kind of the mismatch that we're looking at as far as the rankings this week.
Yeah, I'm looking at it from a perspective of a Notre Dame fan. I hope Notre Dame can go above Bama. The question is, will the CFP allow that to happen? Well, Alabama did lose at home. They did lose to a quality opponent, and I think they might judge a little different because Mateer is back and he looked a lot healthier. If we did these college football playoff rankings earlier in the season, I think Oklahoma would have been up there in the top 10 with Mateer being healthy. But after he had that hand surgery and everything like that, a lot of people are questioning Oklahoma. I was listening to local talk radio where I live that this one guy was challenging Mateer in basically like, what has he shown? What has he proven to us that he's actually back? He almost was like pounding out with his chest, and I thought about it. I was like, well, that's an interesting beat. I can't wait to watch this game. Sure enough, I'm watching this game, and I'm like, well, I guess he just proved everybody because he was the one you can hear him pounding, like where his mic picks it up. He's like, you gotta pound Bama. You gotta pound Bama. And that's one of the funny thing about the betting world. Even though you pound teams, you don't always win. You just got to win majority of the time. He lost. That's all I got to say about that, Nick.
Yeah, I think it's funny. Okay, I agree with the person in question who was doubting Oklahoma because they weren't sure if Mateer was back. I told somebody over the weekend, John Mateer still has his cape, but it was at the dry cleaners. Because when John Mateer is healthy, He is a Heisman Trophy level player. And we're not affiliated with the SEC. We're not affiliated with Oklahoma or the old Big 12 Texas-Oklahoma Alliance or any of that. John Mateer's a bad dude when he lowers his shoulder and runs the football like that. And he was slinging it over the weekend. So I don't know if he got some special vitamins, Coach Drew, air quotes for those listening on audio only, but damn, he looked like that dog we saw at the beginning of the year that played against Michigan and, put up a lot of numbers against a lot of people. Oklahoma was at 11. They're on the upswing. Bama's going to drop down from number 4. Notre Dame's at 9. Oregon's at 8. So as far as Big Ten Notre Dame coverage, this is the question that I've been talking to people about all weekend. Will Bama drop below who? So Oregon's at 8. So that's our cutoff line as far as our coverage is Big Ten and Notre Dame. Georgia's obviously going to move up to number 4 because they beat Texas. Texas Tech, who, if you haven't watched
That's a nice
Texas,
way of putting it.
Thanks, Coach Drew. So Texas Tech beat the hell out of UCF, which everybody in the world expected, except a blind person. Or some of the people that respond to your social media comments, Coach Drew. Some of those people, I'm not sure if they're blind or if they just can't see football. But so Georgia's going to be at 4. Texas Tech beat the hell out of UCF. Ole Miss squeaked one out against Florida. We could throw some more shade at Lane Kiffin, but we won't. So how far does Bama fall? Below Georgia, obviously. Below Texas Tech, potentially. Below Ole Miss, below Oregon, maybe. I don't think Notre Dame's going to be above Alabama. And I do think that Oklahoma is going to jump Notre Dame at 9 because they won on the road at Bama, which is going to bump them up a couple spots. And this is the conversation I've been having with people all weekend. How far up does Oklahoma go and how far down does Bama fall? And what does that do to Notre Dame? So we're going to cover Notre Dame Pittsburgh right after we talk about this. But I'm going to say this to Notre Dame fans because some of you guys are having a panic attack. I know, because I've been on the phone with you. I've been in the Twitter comments. I've been on the Rate Game app, Coach Drew. You've been on the Rate Game app?
Familiarize with me. I'm kind of new to this Rate Game app.
So the Rate Game app was started by a guy who didn't enjoy sports gambling. He'd had some problems with it. So he created a community for sports fans that could go on there and talk about sports and feel invested in it with other fans that watched the game or attended the game without having to engage in fantasy football or sports gambling, which is a pretty cool deal. So talking to fans on the Rate Game app, you really get to see what other fans who watch the game or follow the game, you get to see what they feel. So it's kind of hard to tell where Notre Dame's going to be. I promise you that Notre Dame is not going to get bumped out of the college football playoff if they win out. Now, for those of you in the comments section, I will wager you whatever amount of money you want. We'll exchange Venmos or whatever. Notre Dame's not getting bumped out because of this. And if they win out, they will be in the college football playoff. Me and Drew have been breaking down numbers and looking at it. Number one, the television networks want Notre Dame in. They're not going to get the short straw. If there's a coin flip about whether a Big 12 team has a good resume or something, Notre Dame is not getting knocked out of this college football playoff. As long as they go ahead and take care of business the last 2 weeks, which they will. Thoughts on that, Coach Drew?
Yeah, I mean, it's the same thing with Texas Tech's head coach. He talks about Notre Dame not playing in a conference, and he likes to poke the bear. Last person to do that got fired from their program. So I just want to point that out. Just because you think you're in a conference and you're protected doesn't mean your SOS is pretty well, because we see the similarities with the ACC. Just because you play in a conference with a lot of weaker opponents doesn't mean you can't create a better schedule. Not being independent. Mic drop. So I'll point that out there.
Correct, Coach Drew. Very, very solid. So Notre Dame, I think, might still be at 9 or 10 this week. Above the cut line is at 10. So what do we mean by the cut line? So a group of 5 team is going to get a spot, right? Is an ACC team going to get in? Is there going to be a highest group of 5 team that is 100% sure that an ACC team gets in, although the ACC conference champion probably will get in? But then you look at the American Conference with Tulane, North Texas, Navy. South Florida got beat by Navy over the weekend. So I think South Florida's chances are kind of slim and none, but I don't want to call them 100% out of the race. Then you've got JMU in the Sun Belt who could get a group of 5 bid. So what we're looking at here is it's the top 5 ranked conference champions. So the ACC is probably going to be lucky to get one team in. It's possible, and I didn't believe this a couple weeks ago, although I had it on my board. It is possible that you could get an American team and a Sun Belt team. And I know that sounds crazy to some of you that may be listening. The ACC is not looking good right now. The only teams in the ACC that are legitimately still alive to get a college football playoff berth, in my opinion, are Miami, Georgia Tech, and Virginia. And I know some of you are saying maybe Duke could still get into the ACC championship game. I don't think that in that scenario, Duke is going to get in. I just don't. Based on strength of schedule, what do they call it, Drew? Strength of record. Meaning how well you perform, style points, SOR against the teams that you played. We're only speculating about 100 different possibilities, but I do think that Ohio State, Indiana, Texas A&M, Bama, Georgia, Texas Tech, Ole Miss, and Oregon, well, I won't say it about Oregon. Those other teams are almost guaranteed. If they win out, they're guaranteed. I think Oklahoma still is somewhat in danger because of their future schedule and the potential SEC championship game bid. BYU, I don't think. They obviously have a chance, but BYU has a bumpy road ahead to get in. Coach Drew?
Yeah, with Duke losing to Virginia this weekend, just to update that doomsday scenario, and Louisville also having troubles this week too as well. We're not looking at Georgia Tech, Virginia. Pitt just lost to Notre Dame by 105, as their head coach said. So we're gonna get into that a little bit here in a second.
Is that the worst quote of the year? Is that the worst quote of the year?
Yeah, that's definitely up there. You don't want to put yourself in a predicament, especially like going into a game telling your team that you're gonna lose by X amount of points and this game doesn't matter. Anytime, every game matters for whatever reason. Like if Pitt beats Notre Dame, they get SOR points. Like I don't know why you would say that.
Right.
And to think that you're safe. It was an ignorant
comment. Sorry, not to cut you off, Coach Drew. It was an ignorant comment considering that the ACC is the weakest of the Power 4 conferences, and they were already having this conversation. By they, I mean just people around the sport, that an ACC team might not get in at all. And the highest ranked ACC team was Miami at 15. And you're going to say that?
Yeah, again, with the whole Pitt situation, they get SOR points, and it's going to be more stuff that we're going to delve into here in a second. But yeah, the ignorance of just believing that the ACC conference can just get in. They take the top 5 best champions, best on SOR, and the ACC has not shown a lot this year. A lot of the strength of schedule has not been good.
No, they'd cannibalize themselves, and not in a good way. Do you want to go to Pittsburgh? Speaking of Mr. Coach Narduzzi, and talk about the Notre Dame Fighting Irish, who are ranked number 9 in the country currently, pending the new CFP rankings, visiting the Pitt Panthers, number 22. Coach Drew, before I hand it to you, I want to talk about the Jeremiah Love 56-yard touchdown and the spin move. He gets to the second level and hits that spin move. I'm like, oh, damn. That was so next level, and we had loved going to New York for the Heisman presentation potentially at the start of the year. And not that he ever did anything to slow down that protection, but maybe some play calling earlier in the year, first couple games, maybe we were questioning whether he was putting up the numbers by no fault of his own. But Dude, if that's not a fucking Heisman play, then I don't know what is. That was so nasty. In the defense versus the Pittsburgh Panthers passing game, the Pitt Panthers had, on paper, by some metrics, one of the best passing games in America. They would dink and duck you underneath and hit you over the top. I think the Irish did a great job on defense. I'm going to compliment Chris Ash, who has never listened to this show, I'm sure, but if he did, he would probably hate my guts because I called for him to be fired earlier in the year, and I didn't think he was doing a great job. But I'll tell you what, they've simplified coverages. They look good right now. Dude, they're letting the cornerbacks cook, and they're letting the safeties do what they do well and play the middle of the field. So I'm very happy about that for the Irish. The Irish are... as I said, the Irish are a CFP lock right now, as long as they win out. Notre Dame fans get nervous, call me at the end of the year and tell me, send me a thank you note. Don't worry about it. Just, a little thumbs up, little subscription. The Irish are locked as long as they win out after this. This is a quality road win against the number 22 CFP ranked team. Defense approved. Heck, what can you say about CJ Carr that we haven't already said? I love the kid. I am so sold on him. Somebody told me they were shocked, Drew, when he won the starting quarterback job. I think it was a big Notre Dame fan. We might want to send him this clip after the show airs. They were shocked that CJ Carr was a starting quarterback over Minchie. I mean, dude, this guy is one of the most can't miss quarterback prospects as a redshirt freshman that I've seen in college football in a long time, and the best running back room in America. The only question right now is Notre Dame's in if they win out. Are they going to be above or below Alabama? I don't think that Alabama will drop below them just yet anyway. Coach Drew, let me know what you think about it.
Yeah, I don't see Bama dropping below them because, again, material, and they're doing the eye test with SOR, and I think Oklahoma would be in the mix if material was healthy. That's why they're on the border with Texas. Texas just established that they can hang with the big dogs, some Bulldogs, in reference to Georgia. But again, looking at this Notre Dame team, and Pitt had troubles because they're starting a true freshman who's been great all season for them. But here's the thing. When you have a true freshman starting, I mean, at this point of the season, they're almost a sophomore, but it's not the same.
I almost said that. I agree with you.
So with Jeremiah Love, you have him coming into this game and he puts on a spin move, and it almost looks like almost reminds me of like a video game showing you this is a cool move you could do, a spin move and break off, and then he scores a touchdown with the animation. I mean, Notre Dame was playing some of their best ball. I'm pretty sure Marcus Freeman told them before the game that this game counts and that they need to win this game to stay eligible for the college football playoff, while the other coach might be like, all right, guys, if we do our best, we can all go get Chick-fil-A after this. I mean, I don't know what else. I can only imagine what the difference was.
It's embarrassing. That is such an embarrassing comment by a coach at any level of sport. It wouldn't matter if we lost by 100. What are you talking about?
The coach, I will say, the coach is a little older. He's not on the younger side. I think that goes back to the old days of football where, like, if you were the SEC, it doesn't matter. Like, he thought that was like that's the Notre Dame needs to play in a conference. Okay.
No offense to any of my elders, but that's a senior moment gone wrong, because he thought he was doing some sound clip or sound bite that he heard in his younger days, and dude, it came off horrible. He was on College Game Day and they asked him about it, and he goes, well, that was Monday. Today is Saturday. So let's talk about Saturday. And I was like, shit. Yeah, this is weak.
Yeah, in your preparation to Saturday, you couldn't figure out how to stop Jeremiah Love. One of the funny things I liked, I found some interesting shorts that Pitt fans were sharing, how this linebacker core was going to take care of Jeremiah Love and how they were going to expose them. Because the biggest reason Jeremiah Love doesn't get a lot of hype is because he gets all these rushing yards against Navy. He gets all these rushing yards against Boston College. He gets all the rushing yards, but then if they played Ohio State or they play like USC, well, I think USC, he did fine. But the point is, a lot of A lot of that was a USC poke right there.
I know.
But going against some of these schools, we look at it and we go, Jeremiah Love can hang. And I think people need to realize that. There was scouts there for Jeremiah Love. I mean, Malachi Fields is a dog, dude. He just goes up and just catches a ball. Like he's gonna be playing on Sundays for sure. Him making the move to Notre Dame was a business decision, and that was probably one of our best offseason signings.
Can I talk about the red zone throw that CJ Carr made to Mr. Fields? The back shoulder throw. That is poetry in the passing game. That's a read between the quarterback and the wide receiver that, okay, the defensive back's lined up with inside leverage. He's not giving me much room to make the catch on the outside. And him and CJ Carr, Malachi Fields and Carr have practiced that so many times. And, they haven't been together that long since spring practice, but dude, they just make it work. We've made the comparison to a pick and roll point guard with a big man who's good at like pick and pop or pick and roll to the basket. But that's the feel that CJ Carr has with Malachi Fields right now. And honestly, Drew, when's the last time Notre Dame had a wide receiver that was as fun to watch that makes a play like that? A Notre Dame fan on the Rate Game app acted like that was a 50-50 ball, or that was a just throw it up type of ball from CJ Carr. No, that's music, man. He sees the read the same way the wide receiver does, and pop, pop. I mean, it's there.
I mean, we can go back to Will Fuller's days. We can go back to Michael Floyd's days. I mean, there's a couple of wide receivers I can name. I mean, hell, Golden Tate, Jeff Samardzija. I mean, those are just some Notre Dame greats who just would make those plays and you'd just be shocked.
No offense, Drew, but I think I was in my 20s last time Samardzija was catching balls for the Irish. So, I mean, that's been a while. So that's the only reason I asked the question. It's like, yeah, Malachi feels a little special right now. I hope the Irish fans appreciate what he's doing up there. Man, we're going to talk about another wide receiver later who's doing some special things. But, yeah, I enjoy the connection between Carr and Fields. And Notre Dame fans, you got CJ Carr for another year. I'll bet you got him for 2 years. We'll see what happens. I mean, he'll be draft eligible next year. How much? Okay, Drew, I'll be the villain here, and you can smack me down if you want to. I've enjoyed watching CJ Carr so much this year. I mean, what a kid, what a player, what a competitor. Dude, he makes the throws. I'm not going to pull up the Pro Football Focus chart of how many down the field throws he makes in each quadrant and all this. I know a lot of you guys liked Riley Leonard. A lot of you guys loved Riley Leonard, and Notre Dame had a literally magical season last year. It was unbelievable. CJ Carr is so much better than Riley Leonard. So much better. It's disgusting. Your upgrade at quarterback, if he stays and then you guys have a great offensive line every year, dude, the sky is the limit for Notre Dame right now. It really is. And I'm not wishing past this season for any team. But CJ Carr is so fucking good. He is so good. And I hope you Notre Dame fans appreciate that. Unlike the guy who made a comment, Coach Drew was having a conversation in one of the social medias, and somebody was like, Notre Dame was 10th in total offense last year, but they're 15th right now. So for any dumbasses listening, there are 136 teams in Division 1A football, 136. So if at the end of the year last year they were at 10 and currently they're at 15, that is a negligible difference. Drew, you're more of a math guy than me. I hope you agree with me. Oh, they were 10th at the end of the year and they're 15th. If you don't understand how much better a passer of the football that CJ Carr is than the guy you had last year was, you're a low IQ football fan. You are a dumbass. Please stop watching football. Drew, is that a good
Yeah,
recruitment statement to Notre Dame fans that don't understand the difference? I mean, CJ Carr is so much better than what you guys had last year.
the average could be 10 to 15 yards. And if you recall, we played Miami and we played Texas A&M. I mean, Texas A&M, we got a lot of yards off them. It was a high-scoring game. But I'm just trying to think of defenses that we went against who were a lot tougher than we first before. And the other thing too with CJ Carr is, a lot of us Irish fans were worried that CJ Carr coming in and with the NIL and the transfer portal, that when we resigned him, that he was going to come in and play immediately. And then we got on and got Riley Leonard, which again was the passing of Sam Hartman's torch when Sam Hartman transferred in and then checked on Riley Leonard after he got injured against Notre Dame. And Sam
Sure.
Hartman was like, "You're going to come here next year and you're going to take this torch." And then he walked away with his Goldilocks, and he doesn't have actually golden hair, but I just want to remind you
He's
how
got locks. He's got
awesome
locks.
Sam Hartman then went off to be Sam Hartman, and we brought in Riley Leonard, and things were better. And when you have a system, let's talk about a system here. If I taught you how to play chess in a year, I'm gonna bring up chess because this is like game theory, right? We're talking about chess, all right? If I taught you how to play chess in 1 year, you'd be like, and I threw you in a tournament. I'm like, all right, I'm gonna teach you in a month to throw you in a tournament. You'd be like, okay, I can know some stuff. But if I take you through a whole year and I show you the games I play and I walk you through the games I play in chess, you'd start understanding, okay, I gotta do this here in this situation. I gotta do this in this situation. Dude, CJ Carr sat behind as a redshirt freshman and rode all the way to the national championship. This guy was literally preparing himself for those moments. You got a kid that comes from a grandfather who's was very successful at Michigan.
College Football Hall of Fame coach.
He looks calm. When I look at him and he's behind, some of these quarterbacks, they get very frustrated easily. When something goes wrong, you just look at his face and he's like, how do I figure out this next plan?
Yeah.
He's always thinking about the next thing. He's not thinking about the last play. And I feel like that's one thing that's going to hurt Drew Aller, being injured and everything. And we'll talk about this later in our draft preview. But Drew Aller, when he would throw little tantrums on the sidelines, some people call it character. I call it being a dumbass. You can't be mad at the world. CJ Carr would literally go to the sidelines and just be like, that's on me. And you'd rather have that guy. If you think about it, 9 times out of 10, you want to play for the guy that's gonna just take it and acknowledge it and move on, then the guy's gonna throw a helmet and be like, you guys gotta block better. No shit. That's like in baseball we talk about throw more strikes. My bad. That's a great idea. I didn't think about that one.
Well, and okay, I'm going to throw a layer onto that, Drew, and I love what you just said. But for Aller, this isn't the pick on Drew Aller hour at the Midwest Blitz, but maybe it's a minute or two of it. How many quarterbacks ever pass blocked anybody? I remember as a tight end in high school being put in pass pro against an all-state defensive end and getting beat on a pass rush move. Now, I had done more pass blocking in previous seasons, but I hadn't even been practicing pass pro. And they put me in pass pro against a guy who was all-state and was leading the state in sacks. He swim moves me. He didn't get a sack, but he hit my quarterback. And then they were yelling at me, and I was like, I haven't been doing this. The quarterback, though, my quarterback, who ended up being an all-conference pitcher in college, actually, great guy. Quinn was a great guy. But the coaches were screaming at me like, oh, how'd you let him get hit? But so the reason I brought that story up is for a quarterback to be upset because he's getting hit. Well, has he been blocking anybody? There is a level of composure that's expected out of the quarterback, and CJ Carr definitely has that. I've loved watching this kid play so much. I sound like I'm his uncle. I'm not. I'm not even a pure Notre Dame fan. I'm a fan of the program, but damn, what a guy. I mean, Drew, he's what Arch Manning was supposed to be. That's my thought about CJ Carr. If anybody is a casual football fan and you think oh, this kid's supposed to be, oh, he's the man, he's ready, he's prepared, he's mentally prepared, all these things. CJ Carr is that, man. He's that and more.
Oh, yeah, and I also think having Marcus Freeman and the foundation that has been planted, like, there's a foundation
Yeah.
there for sure.
There is.
Sarkisian with Arch Manning, like, I feel like they just can't get on the same page, and the creativity is not there, and I just feel like that's another thing too. Arch Manning sat behind last year and learned some things in their offense. He just can execute at the same level. And it's going to be interesting to do an end of the year recap of going through quarterbacks and just trying to figure out what really went wrong for Arch Manning. You know?
I think
So,
Nick Saban, who I've been critical of, maybe heavily critical of because he pissed me off last year with some of the things he said about my Indiana Hoosiers. But Saban did a great breakdown on College Game Day of game film of Arch Manning. And my take from it is his footwork is bad. So I was a football coach. Coach Drew's a baseball coach. I played basketball. Coach Drew didn't really play basketball much as he got older. So we have different takes on sports and how we view them, but we exchange notes and all this. And that's why we're the best of friends. The way that I saw the notes that Saban made about Arch is that, dude, he's got A+ talent. He definitely has NFL talent, but he doesn't have A+ discipline. He's got like C+ to D+ discipline on his footwork on some of these short throws. The Texas passing game, a lot of it is behind the line of scrimmage, but a lot of it's RPO where you're faking a handoff from right to left, which if you're audio only, you're not going to be able to see or understand exactly what I'm saying. You're riding the running back, then you're pulling the ball. Well, you've got to pull your hips around to make a throw to the right. And if you played baseball, that's really easy to understand. And Arch's footwork is sloppy. He's been the anointed guy at quarterback in Louisiana since he was a kid because of his family name, and he's a fantastic athlete. I feel like, and I'm not rooting against him. I'm from Indianapolis. I grew up watching Peyton Manning. I love Peyton Manning. I root for the Mannings. I'm not anti-Arch, but I feel like he has not worked for it or felt, help me out, Drew, when I get done stumbling over this, but he doesn't feel obligated or has not put in the work that his uncles have, that his grandpa did. His dad was a wide receiver, and that's not an insult to Cooper, his dad. But he is not the student of the game that some of the other guys in his family have been.
well, one of the things that, if you're talking about footwork, it reminds me of going down the recruiting trail as a college coach. One of the things you see at the smaller schools, I think one of the things they said Arch played at a smaller school in Louisiana. When you're going against competition, that's not necessarily great. Now, I understand he also probably did 7-on-7s. How does that translate? New school versus old
Yeah.
school. But going into the meat and potatoes of his high school season, going against smaller schools, that usually translates. It's easier for him to stand out, right? But now if you put him at a bigger school, you learn more because there's going to be a bigger quality pool of better players. So that also might be another thing too, why he's not disciplined on his footwork, because what he could have got away with when he was in high school, he can't get away at the older level. And he himself has to differentiate that. That's another thing too. We have that a lot too in college where we particularly at the junior college level, you'll get kids that are at a smaller school. We give them a shot because of their stats and or something we see on film. And then we bring them in and we're like, why are you doing this in this situation? And he's like, I always stole. What do you mean? And I'm like, that catcher's going to throw you out. He's like, well, I just stole every time last year. Yeah, because there wasn't good catchers. Now there's good catchers. And so that's like what I'm trying to like get at with Arch Manning. It's like, hey, you can't just lob it up to your wide receiver. There's good cornerbacks. They're gonna play the ball better. You gotta challenge. You gotta test yourself. So it's gonna be seeing how that's gonna translate.
Drew, before we move on, you probably nailed that point better than I ever did. Before we move on to Oregon, Minnesota, I heard a breakdown from some former NFL players that were watching Arch, and one of them had played in the area that he played in, and they were like, Yeah, he didn't play strong competition in high school. But my issue with that is this is his, what, third season at Texas? Or his third spring ball, at least. So he's been in college for a minute and has not upgraded his level of work and competition in practice. And especially as a quarterback, dude, you cannot play quarterback the same way at the D1 level that you were playing it in high school. I played with a D1 quarterback in high school and talked to him, actually watched his team play recently in the state tournament. You can't do things the same way in high school. Like you just pointed out as a JUCO baseball coach, like, dude, you can't just, oh, I stole every time. Oh, I did this every time in high school. Like, you've been in 3 spring ball practices in high school. We didn't mean to turn this into the Midwest Blitz Arch Manning breakdown, but I do think it's fascinating to see a kid with talent with the spotlight on him and then kind of figure out, like, why is it not going the way it could? Because I don't think it's a lack of physical talent. He's a hell of an athlete. And, dude, when he gets his feet set, it zings. And he's got the sidearm throws, kind of like Tony Romo did. I know some of you guys hate Tony Romo because he was a Cowboy and everybody hates Cowboys, but Tony Romo could throw the ball at different arm angles and arm slots. That was very impressive. But we're going to go to Eugene, Oregon. This is our Big Ten coverage. This is from Friday night. So the Oregon Ducks take down the Minnesota Golden Gophers 42-13. So going back to playoff rankings, because that's what it's all about now, Coach Drew. Oregon had been ranked number 6 by the AP and the coaches poll for several weeks going into the first college football playoff rankings. And then they dropped to 9. They were 8 in the second rankings. They won 42-13 against Oregon. Did the Ducks score enough strength of schedule points, which me and Drew have dubbed style points, in this game to maybe gain a little leeway to not get jumped by a team like Oklahoma that beat Alabama the other day? Oklahoma was ranked 11th, beat number 4 Alabama. Is Oregon strong enough with their strength of record against what will be considered a weak opponent in Minnesota, beating them the way they did? Oregon's defense allowed 62 net rushing yards the whole game. Minnesota threw the ball, 32 attempts for 138 yards. If you're a defensive coach and those are the numbers that you get, that is elite defensive football by the Ducks. Dante Moore, 27 of 30, 306 yards, 2 touchdowns. Dante Moore putting up Heisman type of numbers, although I don't think he's in the Heisman race anymore after a few weeks of slow numerical production. I'm a big Dante Moore fan, by the way, Ducks fans. But the passing game for the Ducks had gotten slowed down. Kenyon the Freak Sadiq, 8 catches for 96 yards and a touchdown. I think the Ducks scored some, I'm going to say, brownie points, Coach Drew. Is that fair? Fans, do you think that's fair to say that brownie points are important right now in the strength of schedule era that the College Football Playoff Committee has laid out for us? Coach Drew, what do you think about that?
I think they have to just continue to execute. A lot of these big giants just need to continue to execute against other opponents. Minnesota is nothing to play around with. I mean, you could have got easily burned here if they weren't careful. And I want to remind Oregon that they are a great program. I just want to say that
Yeah.
because we've seen it in the past too. That's what's happened in the ACC. These ACC teams that are supposed to be the best aren't taking care of their counterparts, and then they're getting messed up. Oregon winning this game means a lot for the program because now they are in the driver's seat to just continue to do what they need to do. Now, if Ohio State does beat Michigan, which we're going to cover later in the season, and Indiana wins out, which they should, right? Oregon literally will get in the college football playoffs because, well, they don't have to play in a bowl game or in their conference championship, which we talked about before. Just because you play in a conference championship doesn't mean you should be hurt for playing that extra game. You should be penalized. So even if Oregon does make the Big Ten championship, I'm just saying they're in a good position to do great things. Noah Winningham, he did his things. You had Shadik. He's going to be a tight end that definitely is going to be on people's fantasy boards one day when I would be looking at drafts. I'm like, I know where he went to school at. I mean, Moore, 27 out of 30, 306 yards. That's good. That's very good. And I think Oregon has a lot to be proud of there. Do you want to head over to Bloomington now?
Not quite yet, because you know who the Ducks got next week. Their old Pac-12 conference rival, the USC Trojans. That is the most college football playoff eliminator game in the history of our program's college football playoff eliminator games. And I got the Ducks winning that one. I haven't seen an early point spread yet as we record this, but I think that Oregon will pound USC with the running game and keep USC off balance. But, dude, USC, as we're going to get to here in a minute, still has one of the most explosive passing games in the country. I mean, Notre Dame kind of dominated that game that me and Drew were at a few weeks ago, but dude, USC can throw their way back into the game. They're one of the few teams in the country that I would be afraid of being able to do that. And then the next week, Oregon has Washington, who they should beat, but it's funny rivalry game. It's kind of funny and kind of cool that the Big Ten put those West Coast teams in that scenario where their end of season rivalry games and whatnot are still the old Pac-12. You want to go to my favorite college town in the history of the universe, Coach Drew?
Notre Dame?
Yeah.
No, we're going to Bloomington.
Burn.
Yeah, we're going to go over to Bloomington, B-Town, where they took care of Wisconsin, didn't they?
Yes, they did. The Indiana Hoosiers take care of business against Wisconsin Badgers 31-7. Fernando Mendoza with 4 touchdown passes broke the single season touchdown passing record, which was set last year by Curtis Rourke, which was an amazing year last year for Hoosier fans. I don't have words. I should have some fancy thing to say about IU football right now, but if you're a Hoosier fan and you're listening to this, you know how special this season has been. Mendoza, 4 touchdowns, broke season record. They limited Indiana in the running game a little bit, but Wisconsin has had one of the best rushing defenses in the year, almost all year. They did get gashed by somebody a few weeks ago in the running game, but Alabama couldn't run the ball against them, and Alabama doesn't have a great rushing offense. And Alabama killed Wisconsin, but they still couldn't run the ball against them. So they limited Indiana a little bit in the first half. But the Hoosiers take care of business, win by 24 points. Charlie Becker, 5 catches for 108 yards. Elijah Surratt sat out this week, still plagued by that nagging hamstring injury, and I think that Coach Cignetti opted to just let him rest. I don't think he's severely injured. I think he will be back soon enough. Here's what I want to say about Charlie Becker is that Omar Cooper, the other all Big Ten wide receiver for Indiana, has been healthy and been playing. He had the catch against Penn State that we all saw to win the game. Charlie Becker has literally been playing the exact role in the offense that Elijah Surratt usually plays. You've got a guy off the bench who had been playing special teams primarily, who steps in and produces the way that Charlie Becker does. It's either and or. I'm going to start with a credit to Charlie Becker. Dude, that kid's a dog. Love that kid. Does a great job. It's not like when your number one receiver's out, they didn't say, oh, well, Omar Cooper is going to play his role and Charlie Becker plays the other role. It shows the amount of confidence that Cignetti had in Charlie Becker, which is funny because I heard Charlie Becker on the coach's show the week before when Surratt was questionable with a hamstring, and Cignetti said, we have a lot of faith in Charlie Becker. We think he can play, and if Elijah Surratt can't go, Charlie Becker's going to step in, and we have faith in him. And he's produced to incredible levels for a guy who really hadn't played receiver a whole lot this year. So shout out to Charlie Becker, and shout out to Surratt, who will be back. The Waffle House will be open 24/7 before you know it, Hoosier fans. Shout out to the Hoosier defense, who allowed 98 passing yards and 70 rushing yards for the entire game. Most of that 70 rushing yards occurred on one drive when Wisconsin scored 7 points. Elijah Hardy and Dominique Ratcliffe. Dominique Ratcliffe, what a fucking badass that kid has been. He's a big old boy in the middle. Don't mess around with Dominique Ratcliffe. He's going to come get you. Buckeye fans might find that out in the Big Ten championship game. You got to take that guy seriously. But the Indiana defense, like the Ohio State defense, is great across the board. Everybody plays their assignments and produces when they're called upon to do so. Devin Boykin had an interception. Go Hoosiers. Go Hoosiers. Number 2 Hoosiers. Come out on top. B-Town. Whoo.
Yeah, they're still gonna stay number 2, believe it or not, because Texas A&M didn't get a lot of SOR points this week. We could say that enough, right? Huh?
I can't believe that they're number 2. I said there's an element of disbelief there, Coach Drew, but I'm very happy to see it.
Well, there's another team that's going to stay in their pole position more than likely, and that's Ohio State, as they hosted UCLA.
So the Ohio State University Buckeyes traveled to UCLA and decided to stage a highlight reel for their own gratification. They played the Washington Generals. I mean, the UCLA Bruins, 148-10. All right, let's talk about 2 plays real quick, Coach Drew. For one thing, the people's hurdle on the touchdown run was so ridiculous. And we said earlier in the year, and Ohio State fans have said to me also, that you had 2 NFL running backs last year that are currently in the league. And they said the running back plays not up to par. And I know you guys have the other Bo Jackson right now. I will never just call him Bo Jackson, because Bo Jackson was one of my heroes. But the people's hurdle on the touchdown was so elite. I mean, the guy had the angle to make the tackle, and eyes up when you tackle kids. If any young people who are still playing football watch this, for anyone who's coaching youth football, keep your eyes up. Don't duck your head and think you're going to hit the guy and knock him down. So somebody got put on a poster. We're not going to call that guy out. And then maybe just as impressive was Jeremiah Smith. Coach Drew, was Jeremiah Smith bitten by a radioactive spider, or did he land in Kansas in a spaceship and was raised by Martha and Jonathan Kent? Is he some kind of superhuman that we're not aware of? Smith makes a catch. I think he only had 4 catches for 40 yards. They throw a back shoulder throw, Sand does, to Jeremiah Smith, and he just casually turns around and opens his hand and one-hands this ball at an angle that reminded me of a middle infielder in baseball when the ball's caught in the wind and he kind of has to adjust at the last second, and then he just snags it. I mean, Smith caught that ball so easily, and as we've been saying, this guy should be playing on Sundays already. He's just not allowed to because of, rules and regulations for normal human beings, but Smith is just, he is a dog. Those 2 plays stuck out. Those are 2 of the best plays, offensive plays I've seen all year out of skill players. The hurdle, but the catch by Smith, because he made it look so easy, Drew. It just, I can't say I was shocked because I know what kind of player he is, but maybe he's the kind of player that we just don't see very.
Could that be a generational talent?
Maybe that's the word I should have used, Coach Drew. That's why we're a good team. I mean, the thing about Smith that's different to me as a college wide receiver is that I remember Calvin Johnson, and I mostly remember Calvin Johnson just beating you deep. The coverages are by the opponents of Ohio State right now, and as I move my hand left to right over the top of my head, are intended to not let him beat you deep. This is, by the way, Carnell Tate's been out now at least the last couple of weeks with some kind of injury. We hope he's back by the Big Ten championship game at least, or by the Michigan game if you're an Ohio State fan. If you're worried about that kind of thing, they call it the game. Pretty big game. They call it the game. But the coverages are designed to not let Smith beat him deep. And I honestly think this is going to help him in his pro career because his route running is so good that now he's used to having to catch balls underneath and on the sideline and go back shoulder and sit down in zones. He runs routes like a pro wide receiver, and it's I don't know, it's next level. We got Styles time too. Sonny Styles and Lorenzo Styles were leading tacklers. Lorenzo Styles with a big kick return for the Buckeyes. Dude, it's an embarrassment of riches. It is. The Buckeye war machine rages on. I'm not sure that they know how to take compliments from somebody who's not writing for Buckeye Daily or whatever they follow, but this team is loaded. There's no lack of player development in this program, and this is why Ryan Day is the best college football coach in America. I'd like to say that it's Curt Cignetti. I'm an IU fan. If you guys have been listening, you know that. If you're new, you know it now. And Cignetti does a lot of nice things, but the body of work over the last few years of Ryan Day is like they reload. They don't rebuild, they reload. And even at the start of the year, if they're not sure where to fit certain guys in and get them to do certain things, dude, that team they're scary. They're very scary.
Absolutely, they are. I mean, the Ohio State, they got to bring in their subs early into this game, earlier than most, honestly, and I think that plays a huge role into games later down in the season. When you play against Michigan, you know that everyone's going 100%. There's going to be injuries. You're going to have to put subs in. You're going to the college football playoffs. You're also going to have people that are going to be needing to get in certain situations. People are going to get tired. People are going to get injured. It's just part of the game. I remember that last year for Notre Dame. We lost a lot of defensive help, and we were like, how are we going to find it? And we found it. It just didn't all work out in the end, but it's just one of those things where you get to see that second level come in and show what could possibly happen down the line, the future of the Ohio State.
I do think that Ohio State at running back now, over the length of the season, you guys have depth now. I mean, I know last year you had Travion Henderson, who I enjoyed watching over the length of his career. Dude, they're so deep. They're so scary to defend. If their rushing game ever steps up to how scary their passing game is, and I'm alluding to the fact that I think that's what's happening, I don't know how you beat this team. And Ohio State's been the boring team this year because they just beat the hell out of everybody. And the Ohio State fans, let us know in the comments if we criticize or in any way imply that somebody might keep it close for even a half. They go, no. Well, I guess if your team's that good all the time, I understand why you feel that way.
They're so good they got a Dr. Pepper commercial after them.
Correct. It's dirty what Ohio State's doing right now. And I don't hear them getting the love from anybody, but I think it's because the games are air quotes boring, because they dog walk everybody. They just do. The defense has gotten better and better. I don't know. Make me move on, Coach Drew. I'm going to ramble about how fucking good Ohio State is right now. There's no step back. There's no step back for them. They've been improving gradually the whole year while nobody except for us is paying attention outside of Bucknuts Daily or whatever the Ohio State fans watch every day. Coach Drew, where are we going now?
We're going to USC, to the Coliseum, where they hosted Iowa from the Field of Dreams.
Well, unfortunately for our beloved Iowa Hawkeyes, they just didn't have enough offense. Is this something we've said before, Coach Drew?
Yeah, it seems like we're repeating ourselves.
The problem is it is Groundhog Day. Thank you, Bill Murray. One of the scores for Iowa in the first half was on a trick play where they threw a touchdown pass to Mark Gronowski, which was pretty cool. Iowa didn't score the whole second half. They did outpace the Trojans in rushing yards, which is what I hoped they would do to have a chance to win this game, but Mayava, Lemon, and Lane, the law firm of Mayava, Lemon, and Lane, continues to be the most dangerous passing attack in the country. They're the only team, Drew, and I said this to you in our pre-show conversation, that could really dig themselves out of a hole even if the running game's not working. And that's pretty scary also. They don't stack up to Ohio State in terms of overall defense and things. But USC's got a nice squad, and they got to play the Ducks next week. I really hoped Iowa was going to beat their ass, though. I think they pulled out all the stops. My Iowa insider, Hawkeye Todd, who was on our rivalry fan letter earlier in the season, he did tell me that Iowa has struggled when they've had to go to the West Coast. So it's not like Iowa played bad. I do think that USC is clicking on all cylinders. I think that playing Notre Dame's run game, the physicality of Notre Dame's run game, helped prepare USC for this matchup with Iowa, who has a great offensive line. Obviously not the passing attack that the Irish have with C.J. Carr and Malachi Fields and Reardon had a great game the other day, but
Yeah, I think Iowa's just a lot of their troubles has been executing timely plays and manners. It seems like they'll be 3rd and 5 and there's a wide open guy, and then out of nowhere the ball just explodes and goes somewhere else, or they run they're it's 3rd and 1. They line up to run, and then they get smacked right there, boom. And I think that's one of the troublesomes of Iowa. A lot of them don't have faith in KF, and I'm watching Iowa, and I'm like, ooh, if I was a diehard Iowa fan, I would be devastated. I'm like, okay, it's been 27 years. I get it. What now? What's the next move? Who's going to take over this Iowa job? I mean, not rooting for him to get fired, but I'm like, I feel like you got USC now, you have Oregon, you have Penn State, you have Indiana, you have Ohio State, Michigan, I mean, Illinois. I mean, those are all teams that are really good. How much longer can Iowa take being middle of the pack to lower mid?
yeah, okay, let's talk about this. So the concept of the spread offense, and everyone hears spread offense, and I'm not saying Iowa should go full spread offense, but you could still have a great run game and utilize spacing to make your passing game a little bit more of a threat. And I just don't feel like Iowa has made any legitimate attempt to do that in the last 5, 6, however many years that I've been watching them. I admire Iowa fans. If you're new watching the show or anyone else, I admire the smash mouth stuff in the middle. We bragged about the Iowa offensive line and the Iowa defensive front all year. Even the Iowa defensive backs are more athletic and better under Coach Parker, the defensive coordinator, than people realize. But you cannot think that you're going to play a team like USC that has the capability to beat you deep. Because, dude, Mayava will drop the ball in a bucket on 3rd down when you need him to. And when your team has no reliable ability to do that, you're not going to compete against offenses like that. And they did a great job of slowing down Oregon, and Oregon honestly beat them in the running game more than anything. And then Dante Moore led the Ducks down the field for the game-winning field goal at the end. But not having that legitimate passing threat, and I'm not putting it on Gronowski, it's a scheme problem. And I feel like it's been a scheme problem for a long time. And as I've said before on the Midwest Blitz, I love people from Iowa. I have friends from Iowa. My neighbors growing up were from Iowa. And that's what made me start paying attention to the Hawkeyes. And it's the same problem. Are they going to fire Kirk Ferentz? No. Should they? No. I'm not implying that, but I don't understand the lack of understanding of modern football. Just because you spread things out doesn't mean you can't still have power running game. But I feel like Coach Ferentz has refused to incorporate some modern concepts into his offense that, dude, you don't have to throw it 50 times. It doesn't have to be Mike Leach, Texas Tech. But to just think you're going to pound the ball between the tackles the whole game, as much as I love that, I love blocking, I love line play, I love hard-nosed running backs, it just puts them in this situation now where they've lost close games to good teams this season. And what's the difference? The difference is the threat of passing game or lack thereof. I can't say it any other way. We love you, Iowa fans, and I think you guys empathize with my point as far as that goes. I don't know what else to say, Coach Drew.
Yeah, we'll just leave it at that. We can head over to Wrigleyville and watch Michigan and Northwestern in the nosebleeds.
Probably pretty expensive over there at Wrigleyville. What do they charge for beer over there? About $14?
Yeah, probably 14. I think it's 14.
Coach Drew's a Northwest Indiana Sox fan, so he doesn't buy a lot of beers at Wrigleyville. Not saying he buys a lot of beers anywhere, but
yeah, it's probably on par about 14. It's actually not as expensive as other places. I've seen other ballparks charge like 22, which is crazy to think about because I look at that and go, $10 for a beer, you got to be crazy. And then I'm looking at these other ballparks and I'm like, $22 a beer, you got to be super crazy. So Michigan plays Northwestern. Dave Portnoy was there. The Barstool people were there. They were all excited for this game. It's on Wrigley. They took down the bump. It was behind home plate-ish area. It was over the infield. So I'm trying to paint a picture of where the game was played. So it's from home plate to right field. You can see it if you're at the bar. So where Portnoy was shooting Barstool earlier. And this game was a lot closer than a lot of people thought it was going to be. Game-winning field goal.
So I want to talk to the Michigan fans real quick about this game. So you win on a game-winning field goal at the Horn by preseason All-American kicker Zavada. He had 2 misses earlier in the game, but he did come through for you at the end. And in my interactions with Michigan fans during and after the game, on the Rate Game app, by the way, check out the Rate Game app. It's in the App Store on iPhone. And on Twitter, the Michigan fans are not happy. And I'm not saying you should be happy, but I do want to point something out that I observed as somebody who's just a neutral observer who loves football. I felt like Bryce Underwood threw some of the best passes, especially in the mid-range throws, which are the most difficult throws to make in traffic. Like, he threaded some needles in this game. He did have 2 interceptions. One of them was just absolutely bad. I empathize with you Michigan fans on that. But I see progress for Michigan. The thing that I don't think Michigan fans realize is that Northwestern's defense is pretty fucking good. They're a good defense. I'm not saying that they're the best defense in the country, but you guys have not had the most high-flying offense or high-scoring offense all year. So when you come in and play Northwestern, I pointed out last week on the preview for this show here on the Midwest Blitz that I thought Northwestern could make this a game. Turnovers were a problem for Michigan in this game, but the one turnover I felt like was on either a bad play call on the end around that ended up being a fumble and a turnover. Pulling lineman missed the guy who ended up forcing the turnover. So did the coach draw up the play thinking that the end man on the line of scrimmage wasn't going to see that you were running end around? Or did the lineman just make a mistake not picking him up? I don't know the answer to that. I wasn't in the team meeting. But I do think that Bryce Underwood should not be catching a lot of heat in this game, or maybe not as much as he has been from some Michigan fans. He made some laser throws in this game against perfect coverage that honestly I hadn't seen him make a lot this year. So I thought I've seen growth from Underwood. But I feel like a lot of Michigan fans, and I want to hear what you guys have to say if you disagree with me or whatever. Northwestern's defense is not weak. And you guys had like 495 yards of offense in this game. Turnovers killed you, but that's the game that Northwestern wanted to play. I don't put this on Underwood. I just don't. I saw a lot of growth out of Underwood this week in some of the throws that he made. Jordan Marshall was awesome. Dude, some of the runs that he made, he's a classic Michigan running back. Just refuses to go down, keeps his legs moving. Yeah, 496 yards of offense was the number. And I would compare Northwestern to Iowa Light, air quotes, whereas like Northwestern's offense is not going to kill you, but their defense is good enough to hang around and give you problems if you make mistakes, which is what happened. Zavada with the 2 missed field goals. I know people are mad at him, but he pulled the game and he pulled it out for you in the end. You're still alive for a college football playoff spot. I'd like to hear what Michigan's fan base thinks about that, but Northwestern is they're not a Division III school, Coach Drew. They got a pretty nice defense and a hard-nosed coach that preaches tackling, gap discipline, all these boring things that nobody wants to talk about when they watch football. But yeah, Northwestern's alive Michigan's alive for the college football playoff, but Michigan fans are not. Frankly, they're pissed off, and I'm not sure what they expect. This is not a high-flying offensive team. It wasn't even a high-flying offensive team when you guys won the national championship. I think they're trying to stick to the same formula, power running, solid defense. I don't know, Drew. What do you think? I'm curious what the Michigan fans think or where they think they are. They're still alive with 2 losses. How many teams in the country can say that?
Playing on a neutral ground is sometimes weird, right? It takes you out of your element. I mean, Wrigley's one of the oldest ballparks in America. I think it's second right behind Boston. So, I mean, I know they modernized a lot of stuff there, but playing in like Wrigley is Wrigleyville, which is different because most campuses or anything like that, they don't put the bars right around the field. Well, this field has a lot of bars around it, and the reason why I mention this is it just doesn't feel right. So some of it might have been a feel thing. I have heard this from being a Chicagoan. Sometimes we don't install things correctly, or our turf isn't the greatest. We've had that a lot with our soccer and football team. Now Wrigley's baseball field crew, excellent. The Chicago White Sox field crew is excellent. So I'm just trying to give, some Michigan fans that sometimes being in a weird area changes things. And I think you guys should still be positive. You guys control your destiny. The game is coming up. Let's not lose focus here. Everybody's going to want to watch that game, right? It's the game.
No
Everybody wants
doubt.
to watch the game.
Well, and that game against Ohio State, the game, will be stylistically different. And I promise you, Shro more than the Michigan staff. They've been game planning that since the last game. They've been game planning that since they beat Alabama on New Year's Day last year, a bowl game that I watched, and I know you Michigan fans, you Michigan diehards watched it. I wouldn't be too sour right now. Maybe it's tough, though, if you won the national championship a couple years ago, and I don't know. This is my thing with the Michigan fans being pissed. You should be happy you won because you're still alive. What do you want? Did you think you were going to score 50 against Northwestern? Because I knew that you wouldn't. Now, could you have won by more? Sure. Could the field goal kicker have hit the first couple? But you had a game winner for you. Coach Drew, I almost think this is the adversity game maybe that Michigan needs to get them like dialed in coming down the stretch.
Yeah, I mean, they play Maryland next week, and then they have Ohio State, which if they win both those games, they'll be guaranteed in the college football playoffs. That's for sure.
I don't know about guaranteed, but they're definitely in the conversation. They're definitely right there. As I look over here at the big board, they're definitely in the conversation because let's say this. Michigan was 18 this week. USC was 17. If USC gets beat by Oregon, 17-18. All right, number 14 is Vanderbilt, who was on a bye this week. Vanderbilt is host. Vanderbilt is not getting in. They've got 3 conference losses, I believe, so they're not getting the SEC title game. They're not getting in. They play Tennessee at the end of the year. If they win that game, that's not getting them in. The Big 12 champion probably going to get in. Utah right now looks like a potential for that versus BYU. But yeah, Michigan is right there. Miami, Georgia Tech, and Virginia in the ACCs we talked about at the beginning of the show, they don't have a leg up potentially on Michigan if they could beat Ohio State. And that's the game you guys live for. I'd be focused on that. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. Let me know.
Do you want to talk about the other Michigan team, the Michigan State team?
Do we have to?
Yeah, I'll briefly go over it. Michigan State took on Penn State. Penn State got their first win in the Big Ten, 28-10.
I predicted it. You're on the Midwest Blitz.
Yep. And as Big Nick doesn't like where Michigan State's at, their coach is more likely on the hot seat if we haven't mentioned it before.
He's in Fansville. He's in Fansville on the hot seat. The Lions get their first Big Ten win of the year, as I predicted. Katron Allen. Katron, as we said before, Penn State fell off their pedestal, is a dog. 25 carries for 181 yards. Positive for the Nittany Lions there and their fan base. They get their first Big Ten win of the year. The negative is they've got players that are probably about to hit the transfer portal. Jonathan Smith's future at Michigan State is questionable, Coach Drew.
Absolutely. Now we're going to head over to Illinois, Champaign, as they play Maryland. This game, Illinois got another great win, 24-6 over Maryland, and they're now 7-3, so they already are bowl eligible. I hope they play in the big bowl. They might not make it to the college football playoffs, but hopefully they play in a big bowl game.
Fighting Illini will not be in the college football playoff, but Altmaier and the Hammer, Caden Fegan, had a great game over the weekend. Bielema kept the troops rallied. I think a New Year's Day bowl game, I think Illinois is on the way there if they can win out. They'll have to beat Northwestern still, and I just talked about Northwestern's pesky defense when we talked about their game against the Wolverines. I think a New Year's Day bowl game for Illinois will be good for recruiting, and that's a hell of a fun time. Some people say that non-college football playoff bowl games don't matter. I've got a name for those people, Coach Drew. They're called non-football fans. If you don't like watching college football over the holidays with your family, especially on New Year's Day, you're not a real football fan. Quit watching this show, please, immediately. Just exit stage left. I think Illinois' got a chance to be there, and if you can't make the college football playoff, that's the next best place to be. I think Illinois will be there if they win out. And, dude, could be a nice send-off for Luke Altmaier. How fun has he been to watch all year? What a baller, Altmaier. And Hank Beatty, dude. Hank Beatty is one of my favorite players in the Big Ten. All-around player. Just still try to enjoy this team, Illini fans. I still enjoy watching them, but what do I know about bowl games, Coach Drew? I'm living in the past. I'm just an old guy living in the past, and you know what? I'm going to continue to live there, and I'm going to continue to watch bowl games on New Year's Day, especially.
Yeah, and I think Illinois versus Northwestern, that's going to be a big one because recruiting, like you said, they want to make sure they get all the Chicago athletes and Chicagoland athletes to go to Illinois instead of going to stay in city to Northwestern. So that's going to be a huge battle. Do you want to head over to Washington as they hosted Purdue?
The Washington Huskies beat the Purdue Boilermakers 49-13, a dominant performance. Washington crushes Purdue. A little too late in the season, Washington. A little, goddamn. A day late and $1 short. The loss to Wisconsin by Washington, as we talked about, is confounding and frustrating to me and Phil Steele and a lot of people that thought Washington had a chance to make a college football playoff run. And if you were going to get beat by somebody to lose that opportunity, losing it to Wisconsin last week was not the time to do it. Now you beat up on Purdue. That's stat padding for the Washington players. They have a chance to go in the NFL draft this year, and good for them, but Huskies, wow.
Yeah, they took care of business 49-13 as a raining day. I remember listening to it. I was actually listening to the radio from Purdue's broadcast, and they're like, here we are. And I was thinking about, like, how positive do you have to be a broadcaster for Purdue right now? You drove all the way to sleeping in Seattle to watch this Washington game, and you're just sitting there and you're like, Man, we didn't get Signetti, but I mean, Purdue is. I'm glad Nick's laughing at my jokes.
You're killing me, Drew.
And so, hopefully somebody calls Purdue and makes an arrangement.
I have to say this in case a Purdue fan is watching, which I doubt they ever are. Purdue is much better this year than they were last year, despite them ending 2-10, which they most certainly will. I'm going to the IU Purdue game next week, Drew. You know how much it costs an IU fan to get a ticket in West Lafayette next week?
A lot.
$90.
More than that Maxxion we're going to head over to right now. You ready for the... Yeah.
Can we pause?
Yeah, dude.
$90. That's it. It's pathetic.
Well, I'm going to make another money joke in a second here once we get to the Mac preview. All right, we're going to head over to our Maxxion preview. Let's see what we got cooking this week. We got Akron against Bowling Green and that feisty cat. They're -4.5. I'm going to slam that one for sure. We're going to kind of do this like college game day where I'm just going to go through the stat lines. I'm going to tell you what I like, and it's going to be based on the spread, not money lines, because that's where the money's at. Then you have Massachusetts, yes, the Massachusetts Minutemen, against Ohio, the Bobcats, where it's -32.5. You heard that correct. 32.5.
Is Dr. J playing for the Minutemen? Or is he out of eligibility?
He's out of eligibility. 32.5 is just straight disrespectful, but that's what they're giving Ohio at home. And then we also have Western Michigan against Northern Illinois. Western Michigan is -6.5. I'm taking that one too as well. That is Tuesday, November 18th, which will also be the college football live update rankings. So that'd be something to look forward to. Then we head over to Wednesday, November 19th. We have Miami, Ohio going to Buffalo, where Buffalo is favored -2.5. Well, guess what, Buffalo? You don't know how to win games. Miami, Ohio does in the MAC. So guess what? I'm taking Miami, Ohio +2.5. Because, again, Buffalo proved to me that you deserve to be in this conference. For some reason, I just feel like some of these teams don't deserve to be here. We got to reevaluate.
How in the hell is Buffalo favored?
Maybe because they're home in Buffalo, New York. I don't know, but Miami, Ohio should be able. There might be an injury we're missing, but I'm definitely going to pound +2.5 Miami, Ohio, even if there's an injury, because it's Maxxion.
We picked Buffalo to win the MAC, and they have slipped and stumbled a few times, so they've fallen out of favor with us. Despite Mr. Snow at receiver, L.J. Henderson at running back, they have the defense to win, but they just refuse. They refuse to win sometimes, Coach Drew. Pretty disappointed with Buffalo this year. Pretty disappointed.
Yeah, absolutely. They've just been a big disappointment, even with Victor Snow. What a cool name.
Yeah. Love that dude.
Michigan takes on Kent State. Central Michigan has a -8.5. I'm also pounding that too as well. Kent State isn't as good that they have been in the past. I mean, they're like kind of like Massachusetts. They're kind of down there at the bottom. They've been playing better this year, but they're still not trustworthy. If you have $20 and you want to enjoy some football, raccoons running on the field, and some scoreboards lighting on fire, action's where it's at. You might even hear some feisty chants in a rivalry game where ESPN then has to adjust and go, yep, and this is a rivalry game, acting like they're not picking up the sound of the chants that are going on that are obviously would be censored anywhere else over the airs.
They're not doing Maxxion right, Coach Drew. ESPN's not. I guess this is a rivalry game. Was it Miami was chanting "fuck Ohio"? Is that what?
Yep.
Yeah. I guess this is.
No, Ohio was chanting "fuck Miami."
Sorry, the other way around. Apologies. The Maxxion is, if you're a true football junkie, me and Coach Drew looked forward to Maxxion since July when we started working on this podcast. Dude, it's crazy. The shit that happens on Maxxion, oh man, I don't have the right words. I'm screwing this up for anyone that enjoys Maxxion, but it's about as unpredictable as it can be. And about as fun as it can be, honestly, because they have a good slate of games scheduled here in November, especially this year. I just don't understand how Buffalo was favored in that game. We're not too mad at Buffalo. They kind of let us down, but they do have all the best MAC games were slated for Maxxion, basically.
Well, sometimes they mess up in Vegas and they leave one that's just, there. It might flip once people figure it out by listening to our podcast. To bet that plus, it'll probably move. You'll probably get a -1.5 or something crazy.
Could be.
Well, it's now that time to head to the Midwest. Goodbye.
Are we saying goodbye, Coach Drew, already? It's only been an hour and a half.
Yes. It's only been an hour and a half, and that's me without clipping anything yet.
We had less fantastic games to cover this week than we've had in some prior weeks. But you know what? We love it. We love being here. If Deacon or anybody else is still here, me and Coach Drew live for this.
Dude, we only have a certain amount of more games we cover.
As I stare lovingly at the big board of the college football playoff rankings, my question still from earlier is how far does Alabama fall and how much does Oklahoma rise in the rankings from number 11? I don't see how you put Oklahoma above of some of these teams, but how far does Bama fall? Dude, I think Texas Tech, if I assume most of the people watching haven't watched Texas Tech that much, their defensive line, the first time I watched them, I said and sent a text, I believe to Coach Drew and a couple other people, Texas Tech's defensive line is a brick wall. Baron Morton, their quarterback, is now healthy. Their backup quarterback's pretty good too, by the way. Their passing game concepts are good, and their wide receivers are dangerous. They don't have a bunch of high-rated guys that were preseason All-Americans and shit. But I was watching the game maybe against Utah. I might be wrong, but it was an earlier season Big 12 game with Texas Tech when Baron Morton got knocked out of the game. And their backup quarterback slinging it to the outer third of the field like a pro. Texas Tech is good. They are by far the most dangerous team in the Big 12. I like Utah. I like Utah early. I like their quarterback, Devin Dampier. He came as a transfer portal guy with his offensive coordinator from New Mexico, I think. I like Utah. BYU has played well. Just looking at Big 12 teams, looking at the big board about who may get in from the Big 12 conference. BYU has played well, but I think BYU has played to the best of their ability for most of the year. And that's not an insult, but when you look at the rest of this field, I don't think BYU could compete against Notre Dame. I don't think BYU could compete against Oklahoma, especially with a healthy John Mateer. I don't think they could compete against Oregon. They might compete against Ole Miss. Ole Miss's defense sucks. If you know ball and you've been watching Ole Miss, their defense is about as reliable as a car with a flat tire.
Yep.
Georgia continues to improve. Obviously, Ohio State, Indiana, Texas A&M. Texas A&M had a scare. Indiana's had a scare. They had a scare at Penn State. That doesn't make Texas A&M not a good team. I think that, in fact, Texas A&M showed character coming back to win that game the way they did. Because a lot of teams would just fold up like a card table under that scenario. I don't think we get a BYU in. I think we get definitely Texas A&M, potentially Utah. Big 12 could be a two-team league this year. And the ACC is one at most. They're not getting two.
Yeah, BYU doesn't have really a good strength of schedule. So when they lost to Texas Tech, that was like pretty bad.
Well, they got kind of humiliated by Texas Tech. If you watch the game, they get beat at the line of scrimmage, which a lot of teams are going to get beat at the line of scrimmage by Texas Tech, like I just said. Their defensive line is one of the best in the country. I think Texas Tech's defensive line might be the best defensive line in the country from the eye test that I've seen. Maybe I should pull up some PFF stats for after we see the new college football playoff rankings. Drew, I'm telling you, if you line up in an obvious running formation and you try and run up the middle against Texas Tech, it's like poof, 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 poof. You're just on your ass. They got some big, strong dudes. The funny thing is, most of those guys, kind of like what Cignetti did at Indiana, most of their guys are group of 5 transfers that play. But, dude, they execute, and they're big and strong, and they punch you in the mouth. I enjoy watching that Texas Tech defense. Just look at the big board here, Coach Drew. Have you, when's the last time you checked the fluids in your car before we get on the road here? It is winter here in the Midwest, early winter.
I actually just got oil change, so all my fluids are A-okay.
Are you sure they checked them? Because I told them to check mine at Jiffy Lube one time, and then my washer fluid wasn't filled up, and that was disappointing.
Oh, that's not very Midwestern of them. They should have drove to your house and refilled it.
They should have. I would do it for them. My brother, who rents a room from me, his friend, their car broke down on the way here. He drove over the highway. He brought him some coolant. Their car overheated. That's a Midwestern thing to do, Coach Drew.
Absolutely. Is this the end of a Midwest goodbye?
I mean, if it has to be. Are you sure they topped off your coolant, Coach Drew?
Pretty sure they did. Man, I can check. Maybe I gotta check for some blinker fluid too.
Blinker fluid. Yeah. What do we think about Georgia Tech? Georgia Tech has 1 loss still, I believe. We're going to end up with a Georgia Tech Virginia ACC title game. That's what I'm predicting. Dude, Miami's going to be left out in the cold. They played Notre Dame at home beginning of the year. Nice and warm down there in Miami. But they're going to be left out in the cold like they were in South Bend come December, I think.
You think so?
What a way to go down. I think so.
Yeah, because Georgia Tech, if they lose to Georgia, it doesn't matter because it's not an ACC game.
Yeah, and if they lose a close game to Georgia and then win the ACC title game, I don't think the committee's going to hold that against them.
Yeah, and then Pitt lost to Notre Dame, and Notre Dame's not an official ACC team.
As Narducci let everybody know. I got out the Magic Notebook, Coach Drew. Phil Steele's Magic Notebook, fully annotated and highlighted for all you college football fans out there. Miami's got at Virginia Tech and at Pittsburgh left, and they're not going to get in the title game because they got 2 conference losses. So where do you earn your way in there? They're not going to put Miami in over the winner of the ACC title game. I just don't see it.
No, they're just hoping that somebody trips on their way out.
You know who's still alive, Coach Drew? And now the national pundits are starting to notice it. You know who? The JMU Dukes, who took care of business against Appalachian State. You heard it here first on the Midwest Blitz. Did I not say that, Coach Drew? There were 38 group of 5 teams still alive, and I said, hey, look out for the Dukes in the Sun Belt Conference.
You did say that.
I did say that.
That is
no
very
math
true.
here. Coach Drew's the math guy here on the Midwest Blitz. I don't use a lot of maths, but I did see what the Dukes had cooking. It could be the Dukes and ACC title winner. Dude, you might get one big. Well, no, you're getting probably 2 Big 12 teams, depending on if Texas Tech wins the Big 12 title, they could knock Utah or BYU out. I don't know. This is a Midwest goodbye right here, though. That's how you do it.
That was perfect. I figured we might have been missing something. That's why we always had to check our blinker fluid.
Blinker fluid.
Well, this is Coach Drew signing off.
See you guys. Thanks for watching. We'll see you in the next one. Good to have you. Let us know what we got wrong. Let us know what we got wrong. You always do. We appreciate that.
They always let us know what we got wrong, never what we got right.
I want to know.